let's both wait before you cross me, baby, cause I don't break for boys. I'm moving on up, I'm moving on.
So as you've just seen, I've just received and unboxed my DJI Mini 3 Pro. So much hype around this drone, it is unbelievable. And for some reason I've decided to vlog on the drone at the moment. So what you're seeing is the image from the DJI Mini 3 Pro in 4K at 30 frames per second. So hopefully it looks all good and hopefully I'm in focus. So I'm just about to take this drone on its first flight down to one of the most uninspiring beaches ever, but I haven't got the car so I can't drive to anywhere nice at the moment. But in this video I wanted to compare the DJI Mini 3 Pro and the DJI Mini 2 and some of the major differences, because they're going to be sending these alongside each other, which means the DJI Mini 2 actually presents itself at quite a good value. So I was going to film this whole section on the DJI Mini 3 Pro, but unfortunately midway through recording it shut down the Mini 3 Pro, saying it was overheating and it needs to cool down. A little bit disappointing, but we'll see if that translates to real life flight time as well. It also did get really hot to the touch, to the point where I just couldn't hold it anymore, so I did have to put it down. So the first thing I want to talk about is these two remotes, and it's the first difference that you'll notice between the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 Pro. But obviously it's got the screen in, so you don't have to fiddle around with this stuff and put your phone in and take the wire out and everything like that. So it just makes it much easier to get up and going. They also sell the Mini 3 Pro without this remote, just with the original remote, if that's what you're into. But the size difference isn't really too much. And the weight difference, so that's 388 grams. That's 384 grams. They pretty much weigh exactly the same. So what you're getting here is a slightly bigger remote, weighs exactly the same, but just a lot more functionality and a lot less fiddly. Okay, let's take this thing out on its first flight and see what it can do. So we've arrived at Western Shore, which is basically just like a small beach in Southampton with not really much on it. I've got the DJI Mini 3 Pro and the DJI Mini 2. And before I get into the first flight of the Mini 3 Pro, I just wanted to talk about some of the differences in the actual drones itself. Now the DJI Mini 3 Pro is slightly bigger than the Mini 2, not by much to be honest, but that's mainly really because of these sensors. So it's got front-facing sensors over here, and then on the front as well, it's got back-facing sensors. Whereas the Mini 2 only has the bottom facing, which the Mini 3 Pro has as well over there. Perhaps the biggest change of the DJI Mini 3 Pro compared to the Mini 2 is the camera. Of course, they've upgraded the camera, but they've done a lot to it. The sensor has been improved, so it's now a bigger sensor. We've now got an f1.7 aperture, which means it should be better in low light. And also the focus is not fixed as well. So as you saw from the vlog earlier, I was focused on myself and the background was out of focus. You wouldn't be able to do that on the Mini 2 because the focus is fixed. And that's it in terms of like the major differences. There's obviously like some little design tweaks and things like that. But one thing I actually really love is on the Mini 2, if you try and sort of unfold the legs in a certain way, it's going to stop you. So you have to sort of learn to do the back leg or the front leg first and then the back leg afterwards. And you have to remember which one you're doing. Whereas on the Mini 3, I don't know how they've done it, but now you can unfold the legs in any order and it doesn't matter. It just saves a bit of fiddling on the shoot, which is really nice in my opinion. All right, let's get this thing up in the air. Okay, first flight done. I did lose it for a little bit there when I went around some trees, but I managed to get it back because the return to home feature on these things is great. So while I'm walking to the next location, I just wanted to talk to you about the flat picture profile and the HDR. Now HDR is a phrase that gets thrown around quite a lot recently, and it's important to note I don't think this is any sort of real HDR like you get on the iPhones like Dolby Vision or anything. It's just a high dynamic range way of filming. So what I think it's doing is it's taking two different exposures for every frame that you record and putting them together to create a really high dynamic range image. Now one of the problems with the DJI Mini 2 is the fact that the dynamic range was not very good, to be honest. So if you're filming on a bright day like this where you've got clouds in the background and things like that, those clouds are probably going to be overexposed if you want to expose the ground perfectly. But now we've got the DJI Mini 3 Pro with the HDR, the dynamic range just looks so much better on this drone, at least from what I'm seeing on the remote and what I've seen on some YouTube videos. To add to that, one of my frustrations of the DJI Mini 2 was that there was no flat profile, no DCinelike, and so all the colours were already baked in. It's really frustrating because I like to film in flat profile and grade it afterwards, and also with a camera with such low dynamic range, you kind of wanted to squeeze as much out of it as possible, but DJI wouldn't let you by not including DCinelike in the firmware. The Mini 3 Pro though lives up to its name, and it adds the DCinelike feature. So you've got the HDR and you've got the flat picture profile, which just makes for a much better image and a much more pro experience in my opinion. Okay, so quick story, I couldn't find a fly more combo for this drone anywhere, so I've only got one battery. So after that last flight I ran out of battery, I had to go home, charge it again. Now a few hours later I'm back here, so it has been a bit of a time jump. But the last flight reminded me of one of the features on this drone that I'm really excited about, something I didn't know I needed till I actually had it, and that is the ability for the gimbal to tilt upwards. So you can actually use this camera to tilt upwards. Now normally drones, they tilt down and you can use the gimbal to tilt down and go straight ahead, but this one has a little gap here which allows the camera to sort of point upwards. So you can get a really sort of low angle shot of a building. Let's say you wanted a shot of a building, you can get it from up high and then you can go again and get it from down low again. Again, something which I'll be attempting to use in the future. This is a really cool and unique feature for a drone and just opens up so many more opportunities. But that's not the only new and cool feature of this Mini 3's new gimbal. It does have one more trick up its sleeve. And that is the ability for this drone to go in portrait mode. Now, if you think portrait mode isn't important in video, then you're definitely fooling yourself. At this point, Instagram is king, Reels are king, and having portrait mode on a drone, it just opens up so many more opportunities for client work, Instagram Reels, and literally everything in between. And if that wasn't enough for you, we now have Active Track in the Mini series, which means all you got to do is draw a square around yourself on the remote and you can track yourself just like this, either parallel to the side or in front or behind of you as well. Now Active Track is something that was actually missing from the Mini 2, so it's great to have it back in the Mini 3, and it definitely makes it a bit more of a pro drone. I don't know why I'm running. So now I've got the DJI Mini 3 Pro about 3 feet away from me. I just want to demonstrate how quiet it is. It's so quiet, especially compared to the Mini 2. Someone walked past just a minute ago and just commented on how quiet it was, and I think this really demonstrates it, how close I am right now. So that's been it from me. In my opinion, these are all the major things you should be considering when choosing between the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 Pro, or if you're thinking of upgrading to the Mini 3 Pro. In my opinion, all the new features that have been added to the Mini 3 Pro make it well worth the extra price tag, and definitely more of a drone that you can actually use for professional use. But if you're just using drones for fun, or you only use it once a month or something like that, then the Mini 2 is still really, really good value and a great drone that I've been using for a long time. If you managed to stick around this long, then I really appreciate it. If you found it enjoyable or helpful at all, then hit that thumbs up button. If you've got any comments or questions about this new drone, leave them down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to get back to you. And if you want to see more videos like this on travel and filmmaking on the go, then hit that subscribe button with the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.